Deep in the remote, icy wilderness of northern Canada, surrounded by miles of frozen tundra and whispering pines, lies a place known as Lake Anjikuni. For nearly a century, its name has been shrouded in a mystery so chilling, so utterly unexplained, that it blurs the very line between reality and legend. This story begins in the biting cold of November 1930 with a Canadian fur trapper named Joe LaBelle. LaBelle was no stranger to these harsh, frozen lands. He knew the woods, the trails, and the people. On his route through Nunavut, he often stopped at a small, thriving Inuit fishing village on the shores of Lake Anjikuni. The people there were always warm and welcoming, ready with a crackling fire and a hot meal for a weary traveller. But on this particular winter night, something was terribly wrong. As LaBelle approached the village, an eerie stillness hung in the air. The only sound was the crunch of fresh snow beneath his boots. There were no friendly voices, no children's laughter. No dogs barking a welcome. There was only a profound, unnatural silence. He called out. But his voice was swallowed by the vast, empty landscape. Cautiously, he entered the village, and what he discovered would haunt him for the rest of his life. Every single hut was empty. The fires had all burned down to cold, grey ashes. Kayaks were still tied to the shore, untouched. Rifles and tools lay exactly where they should be, leaning against the walls of the homes. Most unsettling of all, pots of food were still hanging over fire pits, charred and frozen solid. As if everyone had simply vanished in the middle of preparing a meal, LaBelle's heart pounded in his chest. He searched every hut, every corner of the small settlement, his calls for anyone a man. A woman, a child echoing into the void. There were no signs of a struggle. No bloodstains in the snow, and most bizarrely, no footprints leading away from the village. It was as if an entire community of nearly 30 people had been lifted straight out of their lives, leaving everything behind. Then he made a discovery that turned his fear into sheer horror. The village's sled dogs, absolutely crucial for survival in the brutal Arctic, were found dead, still tied to their posts. They had starved to death. This detail made the mystery even darker. For an Inuit community to abandon its dogs, its lifeline, was completely unthinkable. It was a death sentence for the dogs, and a decision no one from that culture would ever make. Panicked and bewildered, Joe LaBelle rushed to the nearest telegraph office, a grueling journey of many miles, and sent an urgent message to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. An investigative team was immediately dispatched to Lake Anjikuni. When the Mounties arrived, they confirmed every chilling detail of LaBelle's story. The village was deserted, but as they combed the area, the mystery deepened on the edge of the settlement. The officers found the village cemetery. The graves had been dug up. The stones that covered them were neatly stacked to one side, but the bodies were gone. Who would unearth the dead in the middle of a frozen winter, and for what purpose? And then something even stranger happened. As night fell over the desolate landscape, several of the Mounties later reported seeing mysterious, pulsating blue lights dancing silently in the sky above the lake. These were not the northern lights they were so familiar with. This was something entirely different, something alien and unnerving. Word of the vanished village of Anjikuni spread like wildfire across North America. Newspapers ran sensational headlines, fueling public fascination and fear. Theories began to fly. Some claimed the villagers were abducted by aliens, taken away in the strange light seen over the lake. Others whispered of an ancient supernatural curse, a malevolent spirit known to the Inuit as the Tornrick. And a more cynical few believed the entire event was a government cover-up, hiding something we were never meant to know. Over the years, skeptics have tried to debunk the story. The RCMP eventually released a statement suggesting the tale had been exaggerated, perhaps even fabricated by Joe LaBelle himself to sell a sensational story. But if that's true, Why do official police reports from 1930 still mention the investigation into the abandoned village? Why were there consistent eyewitness accounts from other trappers and the Mounties themselves? And perhaps most compellingly, why do local Inuit elders still pass down oral histories about the night the stars took the people away? Some researchers have proposed more grounded explanations. One theory suggests a mass migration that the villagers, facing starvation, left in a desperate search for food, but that doesn't explain why they left all their food, weapons, and warm clothing behind. Another idea points to a rare magnetic or atmospheric anomaly, something that might have interfered with their compasses and perhaps even their minds. But again, this doesn't account for the missing bodies from the graveyard or the starved dogs. None of these logical explanations can fully reconcile the most disturbing details. No footprints, no supplies taken, no signs of a struggle, just gone to this day. The fate of the Anjikuni villagers remains one of Canada's greatest and most chilling unsolved mysteries. Modern investigators who have visited the site decades later report feeling an overwhelming sense of absence and emptiness so profound it feels as if the land itself remembers the people who once called it home and is still mourning their loss. The legend of Lake Anjikuni continues to grow with each passing year, a haunting campfire story rooted in a terrifying reality. Was it a mass abduction by an unknown intelligence? A terrifying supernatural phenomenon that defies our understanding of the world? Or a carefully orchestrated cover-up to hide a truth too shocking to reveal? We may never know what truly happened on that cold November night in 1930. But the silence over the frozen lake still echoes with the same unanswered question that has haunted generations. Where did they all go? Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoy exploring life's greatest mysteries, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. See you next time.